I just realized I'm jealous of my 6-year-old. I woke up this morning and found my 6-year-old on the sofa, fully dressed and ready for school an hour before he's supposed to be up. I ask, "Hey buddy, what are you doing up so early?" He replies, "I accidentally peed the bed this morning around like 4 and I tried to wake you up but couldn't, so I took my blankets off, put them by the laundry room and changed. Then I came out here." I thanked him for taking care of it and I told him, "Not worry, we'll have everything cleaned and ready for his bed later. Next time, make sure you pee before bed, accidents happen, blah blah blah, etc." Then he got up and prepared breakfast. I made coffee and I sat there and thought to myself, I'm jealous of this kid. It reminded me of being around his age as a child, and I remember wetting the bed. But my first instinct wasn't to wake my parents. Hell no, they would have beat the crap out of me. I instead went to the bathroom, stole a roll of toilet paper, and tried to dry my pee-drenched linen. Because I knew if my parents found out, I would be in so much trouble and I was terrified of them. But my son doesn't have to live with that kind of fear. Instead, he tried to get me, and when I didn't wake up, he took care of it himself. And I wish I felt that sense of safety and reassurance when I was his age. When have you seen the real world hit a spoiled brat? When I was in high school, there was this horribly bratty rich kid who loved to pick on others, push people around, and play the "do you know who my dad is?" card a lot. Let's call him Todd. I hated this kid, all through school. Final year of high school, I had a bad day one day, and it obviously showed. Todd sees me walking in the hall and makes some snide remark about my shirt. I promptly tell him to shove it, as I'm not in the mood. He walks over to me while I'm at my locker and slams my locker door and shoves me. He said something else, but I honestly don't remember what it was. I just remember that I saw red, and drove my fist into his nose like a truck. I stomped away all teenage and angsty. Got called to the office the next day. Todd is sitting there with his father and the principal. I knew I was fucked. The principal shows us all the security camera footage of what went down. I'm assuming an expulsion is coming my way, when Todd's father puts his hand on my shoulder and smiles. He tells Todd to say thank you, and we both look at him dumbfounded. "Why would I thank him? He broke my nose," says Todd. His father responds with, "Because if I had been there and seen you act like that, I'd have ended you." He stood up and left, and I was excused to return to class. Todd never bothered me again. What is the fastest way you have seen someone ruin their life? One of my best friends was close to finishing his BA, got career plans, money, was physically fit. Everything was fine, but then on New Year's Eve night, he went into a famous nightclub in Berlin, bought some drugs, and then jumped from the 7th floor. Either he bought something he wasn't familiar with, or the drugs were laced with something stronger. Anyway, security cameras have him aimlessly wandering the floors of his 20-story apartment building, and I guess he got paranoid and wanted out. So he jumped. Apparently, he didn't die instantly, but slowly bleed out over the next 30 minutes. But since this happened shortly after midnight, nobody noticed because of all the noise and fireworks. They found his body around 4 a.m. and ruled it suicide. Don't do drugs, it's not worth it. What's a local rumor you heard as a kid that turned out to be true years later? The most popular boy in middle school disappeared after 7th grade. Literally, his parents sold their house and moved to a new house nearby, but pretty secluded. He enrolled in a really expensive private school and cut off all ties with his friends. At the same time, a really popular male social studies teacher went on leave. Rumors circulated that the boy was molested by the teacher, and that's why they were both gone. The other popular kids got really pissed when people said that because they really liked the teacher and the kid. Eventually, people stopped talking about it. Fast forward to senior year in high school. He shows up at our prom as the date of his 5th grade girlfriend. First time anyone had seen him in years. Apparently, he reached out to the girl to ask if she had a date because he wanted to see all his old friends one last time. Apparently, he was molested by the teacher during tutoring sessions at the teacher's home. The school district and his parents agreed to bury it in exchange for tuition to the private school. He never wanted to leave and really resented his parents for it. By the time prom rolled around, he was 18 and they couldn't stop him. He wanted to set the story straight and let everyone know he was sorry for just disappearing.
Am I the a-hole for not attending my sister's wedding because her kids aren't invited? When my sister was 16 years old, she got pregnant with my nieces, gorgeous twin girls. She was not at all fit to be their mom, and our parents were quite old by then and not able to care for them either, so I stepped in. I'm almost 10 years older than her. I had finished my education by then and had a stable job and relationship. 7 years have passed and my nieces still live with me. My sister sees them regularly, but she never wanted to get custody for them. To me, it seems like she sees them as my children. I love them as if they were, but still, they're her kids. A few weeks ago, my sister told me that her boyfriend proposed to her. They want to get married in autumn. I was excited at first and mentioned that the girls would be thrilled too. She asked me not to tell them because she wanted to have a child-free wedding, although they both have children. Her fiancé agreed and seemed to have no problem to exclude his kids. I told her I would not lie to the girls and she should tell them herself why they were not welcome at her wedding. Later I heard from a relative that my sister's soon-to-be stepkids would in fact be at the wedding. The girls were excluded, so her fiancé's family would not get to know about her screw-ups. I was pissed when I heard that and called my sister to confront her. She didn't even deny it. I told her I would not attend her wedding if she didn't have the girls too, and I also told her that she's the screw-up.
What was the best "you have no power here" moment you have ever seen? When I was in high school, I worked at Popular Warehouse Club selling computers on the weekends. I was hired by the store manager via referral of a friend. I loved computers and they thought I'd make a good salesman. So my job was to stay in the computer department and sell computers, nothing else. Well, one of the shift managers didn't like that and insisted that I needed to go fold clothes for half my damn shift. I told him that the store manager had instructed me never to leave the technology department, but he insisted. This went on for several weeks. The store manager showed up one weekend when both the power trip and shift manager and I were working. The store manager walks up with the shift manager close behind. Store manager slaps a stack of papers down onto a shelf and points to some highlighted numbers. He looks at the shift manager and says, "Do you see this? This is our average technology sales numbers for the weeks you are on shift. See this number over here? This is our average technology sales numbers for weeks you are not. At this point, it would be more cost-effective for me to simply fire you. What do you think of that solution?" The guy stammers and stutters like a toddler caught bullying another kid on the playground. Fortunately, the dude wasn't fired, but the store manager made it clear that when I was on shift, I was not to leave the technology department unless I was on break or there was a fire in the store. That shift manager never said another word to me. What's the most disturbing thing you've overheard that you were never meant to hear? My mom is a bipolar narcissist, but through all of the physical and emotional abuse she subjected me to growing up, I always maintained the belief that deep down, underneath it all, she was my mother and she loved me. That was until one particular argument when I was 15 years old. And the argument was so inconsequential that I don't even remember what we were fighting about. But at its peak, I decided to remove myself from the situation and told her I was going to walk over to my friend's house. A minute into the walk, I realized I forgot my phone at the house and quickly doubled back. I entered the house quietly because I didn't want her to notice and be confrontational again. I grabbed my phone, and just as I was about to walk out of the door again, I noticed I could hear her crying from across the house in her bedroom. I quietly walked over to her bedroom and peeked my head in. My mom was on her knees in her walk-in closet, facing the wall with her back to me. She was sobbing with her hands in a prayer position, begging God that I die. But it didn't just stop there. She was specifically asking him for me to die in a car accident. And I had just started learning to drive. She knew my best friend's older sister was taking me to a local empty parking lot on the weekends and helping to teach me how to drive in preparation for my driver's permit. This was the day that I accepted that my mom doesn't truly love me, at least not like a mother should. What's the most messed up thing you've overheard? I overheard a guy in my school, whom I didn't know because he was 2 years younger than me, telling someone over the phone that he didn't want to live anymore. He was so tired of being lonely all the time and getting bullied day in, day out. His crying pierced my soul. I was really popular at that time, had a lot of friends, was always pulling pranks with them, knew the teachers pretty well. So one day, me and my best friend followed him to the bathroom. This sounds so weird, but we had been observing him and we knew he hid in the toilets during breaks. And we kind of started a conversation on how his shirt was really cool and that we were a fan of the same band as him. And then we invited him to sit with us, and we kept that up until we graduated. And to this day, we're still friends. I regularly checked up on him during the time I knew he was depressed, without ever telling him I'd overheard him when he was on the phone. He's doing great now. He's in his second year of music academy. I don't know if we saved his life, but I'm sure bet we made it a little easier for him. And seriously, he's become one of my best friends. Such a sweet kid then, and still a great guy now.
Am I the asshole for leaving before dinner because my mom didn't cook anything my wife can eat? Posted by you/superb_top8222. I recently got married with my long-term fiancé. She and my mom never really gotten along. I always hoped things would get better after the marriage. My mom invited us over for dinner, which was supposed to be our first meal as a married couple at her house. Now, my wife is a vegan. She was a vegetarian before but switched to vegan a couple months ago. My mom knows she's a vegan, despite that my mom didn't prepare a single vegan dish for her. Except a soggy-looking salad. Even the veggie soup, she added chicken broth to it, to make it tastier. The rest was all non-vegan stuff like mac and cheese, fried chicken, jambalaya, and banana pudding for dessert, all things my wife can't eat. I told my mom we were going to leave before dinner since there was nothing for Olga, my wife, to eat. My mom said she could just pick the shrimp out of the jambalaya and eat the salad. I told her that's not how it works. Then she started insisting the veggie soup was fine. I pointed out that it wasn't vegan because of the chicken broth, which according to my mom was bullshit. She then asked Olga if can't she just eat normally for one day. My wife said no, but she doesn't mind just having the salad, but I knew she was just trying to save the day and was fed up with how my mom was treating her, so I thanked my mom and told her we were leaving. My mom freaked out. She blamed us with being disrespectful. She said she spent hours cooking all that food for me. I told her that's the issue, she should have thought about Olga too. My mom said I was exaggerating because it's not like she's allergic or anything. What was the worst experience you've had during Halloween? This happened to my friend who is not on Reddit. It's Halloween night and there's a knock on her parents' door. Dad goes to open it and there is a man with a bag on his head standing on their porch, silent. The man makes a move to step into their house and Dad pushes him backwards. Everyone watches as the man falls backwards off of their step and smashes his head on the ground. It is revealed that the man with the bag is my friend's grandfather, Mom's dad, who was trying to Halloween prank them. He was rushed to the hospital with permanent damage, no longer able to care for himself or his wife who had health issues as well. They both ended up in convalescent care. Additionally, my friend's mother never forgave her husband, placing the blame of the accident entirely on his shoulders. They divorced shortly after. When was your gut feeling actually right? When I was pregnant for the first time, something just felt off. I knew from the very beginning it wasn't going to end well. A few weeks later, I started cramping and spotting, which can be normal in early pregnancy. I ended up going to the ER. They couldn't find any evidence of a pregnancy in my uterus and decided it was a miscarriage and wanted to send me home. But, that gut feeling that something was very wrong was still there, and I listened to it. I demanded that I be seen by my OB, who was head of obstetrics at that hospital, and wouldn't leave until he saw me. He had me in emergency surgery 4 hours after he came to examine me to remove my ruptured fallopian tube and stop the internal bleeding. Had I not listened to my gut, I'd be dead.